Lieutenant Commander Ryan Adams stared out of the spaceship's observation window as it cruised through the endless expanse of space. The stars, like tiny diamonds scattered across black velvet, seemed so distant, so unreachable. It was moments like this that reminded him how small Earth was in the grand scheme of the universe. But right now, that small planet was standing on the edge of a precipice. Earth's government had just given him his most important and most unexpected mission yet, to negotiate a peace treaty with the Zalarians, one of the most powerful alien civilizations in the galaxy. The Zalarians were technologically advanced and incredibly intelligent, but they had been at war with humanity for years, their fleets regularly skirmishing with human colonies on the edges of known space. The Zalarians had been calling for a formal meeting with the United Earth Council for months, but every attempt at diplomacy had ended in failure. Each time their demands had grown more unreasonable and their threats more violent. Now Earth's leadership was desperate. The situation was becoming a powder keg, and Ryan, an experienced diplomat with a knack for diffusing tense situations, had been chosen to lead this crucial mission. He knew this wouldn't be easy. Zalarians didn't trust humans, and they had every reason not to. But he had his orders. The small ship carrying him to the Zalarian homeworld was a sleek silver vessel that hummed softly as it glided through the void. Ryan sat in the captain's chair, his fingers tapping lightly against the armrest. Beside him, his communications officer, Lieutenant Samara, looked over the mission briefing one last time. Samara was efficient and always prepared, and her calm demeanor helped steady Ryan's nerves. "Lieutenant Commander," Samara said, her voice breaking the silence. "We are entering Zalarian space. Prepare for initial contact." Ryan nodded, sitting up straighter in his seat. He took a deep breath and mentally prepared himself for what was ahead. Negotiating peace with a species that viewed humans as primitive and violent was not going to be a simple task, but Ryan was confident that if anyone could do it, it was him. "Understood," he replied, his voice steady. "Let's do this." As the ship approached the Zalarian planet, Ryan could see the swirling clouds and bright blue skies of Zalaria through the windows. It was a beautiful planet, covered with vast oceans, sprawling cities, and lush green landscapes. But Ryan knew that beneath its surface the Zalarians were a fierce and proud people. This was no ordinary peace negotiation. This was a chance to save humanity from an intergalactic war. The ship landed smoothly in the Zalarian capital city, a place known as Xylora. The towering buildings, made of shimmering metallic materials, stretched up to the sky like giants. The streets below were filled with Zalarian citizens, tall humanoid beings with smooth silver skin and large reflective eyes. They walked with purpose, seemingly unaware of the human visitors who had just arrived. Ryan stepped out of the ship, his boots clicking against the metal platform. Samara followed closely behind, her expression as focused as his. The two of them were met by a group of Zalarian officials, their robes flowing elegantly as they approached. The leader of the group was a tall Zalarian woman with sharp features and an air of authority. Her eyes glimmered with curiosity as she looked at Ryan. "I am High Minister Alara," she said, her voice deep and calm. "Welcome to Zalaria, Commander Adams." Ryan extended his hand, offering a polite smile. "Thank you for welcoming us, High Minister. I'm here to ensure that our two worlds can find a way to live in peace." Alara studied him for a moment before giving a slight nod. "We have prepared a meeting with the royal family. Follow me, please." Ryan and Samara followed Alara through the bustling streets, the hum of Zalarian technology filling the air. Ryan couldn't help but marvel at how advanced everything was. The Zalarians had mastered space travel long before humanity had even thought about reaching the stars. Yet despite all their progress, they were still at war with Earth. Ryan couldn't understand it. How could a civilization so advanced still hold on to so much hatred? As they entered the palace, a vast and beautiful structure made of glowing crystalline material, Ryan was struck by the elegance of the Zalarian court. The throne room was large, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch into infinity. On the throne sat a regal figure, Princess Lyra, the daughter of the Zalarian emperor. She was tall, with silver hair that shimmered like moonlight and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of the ages. Her presence commanded respect, and Ryan could feel the weight of her gaze on him as they entered. "Commander Adams," Lyra said, her voice smooth and melodic, "I trust you understand the gravity of this meeting." Ryan took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I do, Princess." I came to offer humanity's hand in peace, but I know it's not as simple as words. The Zilarians have every reason to distrust us, and I'm here to prove that we can be allies, not enemies." Lyra regarded him silently for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You are bold, human, but peace is not something that can be easily negotiated. We have been at war for too long. And your species? You have proven to be both unpredictable and dangerous." Ryan held her gaze. "I know that. But I also know that your people, like mine, want peace. We're not so different. We've both fought battles for survival. But we can't continue down this path of destruction forever. It will only lead to more loss, more death." Lyra looked at him with an unreadable expression. "Perhaps you're right. But words alone will not convince my people. You must prove that you are worthy of our trust." Before Ryan could respond, the doors to the throne room opened, and a group of royal guards entered, their armor shining brightly. Among them was a tall, muscular Zilarian man with a stern expression. He bowed slightly before Lyra. "Princess," the man said, his voice cold, "there are those in the royal court who believe that this meeting should not proceed. We should not negotiate with a species so primitive and dangerous." Ryan felt a surge of frustration but held his tongue. He knew this wouldn't be easy, but he couldn't back down now. Lyra raised a hand to silence the man. "Enough, Vorak," she said firmly. "We will proceed with the meeting. Let Commander Adams speak. He has come here for peace, and I believe he deserves the chance to prove it." Vorak shot Ryan a glare before stepping back, clearly unhappy with the decision. Ryan wasn't sure what kind of political games were being played here, but he had a feeling this would be only the first of many challenges he'd face. "Thank you, Princess," Ryan said. "I'll do my best to earn your trust." With that, the negotiations began. For hours, Ryan and the Zilarians debated, exchanged terms, and tried to find common ground. The discussions were difficult, the tension palpable. Ryan could sense the skepticism in every word the Zilarians spoke. They didn't believe he could offer anything that would truly end the war. But he wasn't about to give up. He knew that the future of both their species depended on this. As the day wore on, Ryan felt a strange connection growing between him and Lyra. Despite their differences, they shared a mutual respect. She was strong, intelligent, and not easily swayed, but Ryan could tell that she was also weary, perhaps even a little disillusioned with the endless cycle of war. By the time the sun set on Zalaria, Ryan and Lyra had come to a tentative agreement, a framework for future talks, a small step toward peace. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As Ryan prepared to leave the palace that evening, Lyra stopped him at the door. "Commander Adams," she said softly, "I will admit, I did not expect you to be so persistent, and I did not expect to believe in peace again." Ryan gave her a tired smile. "It's not much, but it's a beginning." Lyra nodded. "Yes, it is, but it will take more than words to truly change our future. You will have to prove yourself, Commander." Ryan wasn't sure what she meant, but he had a feeling the real challenges were only just beginning. The universe was vast, and the road to peace was going to be long. But Ryan Adams was determined to see it through no matter what it took. And somewhere in the back of his mind a thought kept growing stronger. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't only here to negotiate peace. Maybe he was here for something much bigger than that. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Adams had never imagined that diplomacy could feel this complicated. What had started as a simple mission to negotiate peace with the Zilarians was quickly turning into something far more personal and much more dangerous than he had ever expected. After the long, tense day of negotiations, Ryan found himself back in his quarters, sitting alone at a small desk with a cup of warm Zilarian tea in hand. He hadn't slept much since arriving on Zalaria, and the weight of the day's discussions had left him drained. The talks were far from over. In fact, they were only just beginning, and Ryan knew that if they didn't find common ground soon, things could escalate into war again. His mind kept circling back to Princess Lyra, the woman at the heart of everything. She was intelligent, composed, and regal, yet there was something about her that troubled Ryan. She wasn't like the Zalarian officials who seemed distant and calculating. Lyra had a quiet strength about her, a strength that Ryan had come to respect more and more. But what troubled him most was how he was starting to feel about her. He couldn't help it. The longer they spent together, the more he found himself drawn to her. Her calm confidence, her passion for her people, and her determination to protect her planet. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on his door. Ryan stood up quickly and opened it to find Samara standing in the hallway, her expression serious as always. "Commander, we've received a communication from Earth," Samara said, stepping inside as Ryan closed the door behind her. "It's from the United Earth Council." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He had been expecting updates, but the timing felt odd. It had been a long, tiring day, and the last thing he needed was more pressure from Earth's government. "Anything urgent?" Ryan asked, moving back to his desk and gesturing for Samara to sit. She handed him a small data pad and sat down. "They're worried about the progress of the negotiations. The Council is asking for more concrete results. They want to see a signed treaty, not just words." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I expected as much. The pressure is building, but Lyra's people aren't exactly making things easy." Samara nodded. "The Zalarians are cautious, Commander. They've been at war for a long time. They won't trust us overnight." Ryan glanced at the datapad, his eyes scanning the message from Earth. The pressure was mounting, but he knew he couldn't let it show. Not now. Not when he was so close to something that could end the war, and possibly change the course of history for both Earth and Zalaria. "I'll continue pushing for an agreement, Samara. But I can't guarantee anything," Ryan said firmly, handing the datapad back to her. "I have to get some rest. We have another round of talks tomorrow, and it won't be easy." As Samara left, Ryan sat back in his chair, staring out the window. He could see the stars in the distance, the same stars he had been looking at back on Earth. But now they felt different. There was something more at stake here than just diplomacy. The fate of both their worlds hung in the balance, and he knew that he had to succeed no matter the cost. The next morning, Ryan arrived early at the palace, where he was greeted by a familiar face, High Minister Alara. She led him through the grand hallways of the palace, her footsteps echoing softly against the smooth floors. "Commander Adams," Alara said, her voice cool but respectful. "I trust you slept well?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, thank you. I'm ready for today's talks." As they entered the royal meeting room, Ryan felt the familiar tension building in his chest. He had to keep his focus. The Zalarians were still skeptical, and any misstep could turn everything back to square one. But what he hadn't expected was to find Princess Lyra already waiting for him. She stood by the large windows overlooking the city, her back turned to him. The sunlight bathed her in a soft glow, making her appear almost otherworldly. When she turned to face him, her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, a quiet sadness perhaps, or maybe just exhaustion. "Commander Adams," she said, her voice steady, yet there was a note of something softer beneath it. "I hope you had a restful night." "I did, thank you, Princess," Ryan replied, walking toward the table where the rest of the Zalarian officials were already seated. "I'm ready to continue our discussions." Lyra motioned for him to sit, and the meeting began. This time the tone was more serious, more focused. The Zalarians presented their demands once again, and Ryan countered with proposals from Earth. Hours passed with little progress, but it was clear to Ryan that Lyra was beginning to listen. She was no longer merely going through the motions. She was actually considering what he had to say. As the meeting dragged on, Ryan found himself glancing at Lyra more often than he should have. There was something about her, a calm intelligence, a quiet power that he found incredibly captivating. And despite her royal position, she had shown him kindness, a trait he hadn't expected from someone in her position. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Lyra spoke up. "Perhaps we are approaching this from the wrong angle," she said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We have focused too much on what divides us. Perhaps we should start with what unites us." Ryan was surprised by her words. She wasn't just playing the role of the royal leader now. She was genuinely trying to find a solution. He looked directly at her, meeting her gaze. "You're right. We've been so focused on the differences between our species, but we share more than we realize. Both of our peoples value peace even if we don't always agree on how to achieve it." For a brief moment, Lyra's expression softened. There was something in her eyes, something vulnerable, that made Ryan's heart beat a little faster. But then, just as quickly, her guard went back up. "We will continue with this approach," she said, her tone resolute. "But understand this, Commander Adams. I will not allow my people to be betrayed. I will not allow my kingdom to suffer for a false peace." Ryan nodded. I understand, Princess. I wouldn't ask you to, but I believe we can make this work if we're both willing to try. The rest of the meeting passed with fewer words, but something had shifted. The once hostile environment was now filled with an unspoken understanding between Ryan and Lyra. They were no longer enemies. They were two people from two different worlds trying to find a way to avoid destruction. As the meeting came to a close, Lyra stood and motioned for Ryan to follow her. She led him out onto a balcony overlooking the city below. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape. "Commander," she began, her voice quieter now, "I know this is difficult for you. I know you didn't expect to be thrust into the heart of our politics." Ryan smiled, the weight of the day's tension lifting slightly. "I didn't expect a lot of things on this mission, Princess, but I'm doing my best." Lyra turned to face him, her eyes thoughtful. "You are doing more than your best, Commander Adams, I can see that. And it makes me wonder, what other surprises might you have in store for me?" Ryan couldn't help but laugh softly. "I'm not sure what you mean by that, Princess, but if it helps us find peace, I'll do whatever it takes." Lyra smiled, a small but genuine smile. "I believe you, Commander. I believe we are on the right path." As they stood there, looking out over the alien city, Ryan realized something. This mission was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about something much deeper. He didn't know exactly where this path would lead, but he felt a growing connection with Lyra. And for the first time since arriving on Zelaria, he felt a glimmer of hope. The days on Zelaria were growing increasingly tense. Ryan Adams knew that time was running out. Earth's government was demanding results, and the fragile peace talks with the Zellarians had reached a delicate point. The stakes were high, too high to fail. But as Ryan walked through the grand halls of the Zellarian palace once again, he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. The royal court was abuzz with whispers, and many of the Zellarian officials seemed uneasy, their faces hard to read. Most of them still didn't trust the humans. Many viewed the peace negotiations as nothing more than a temporary measure, a way to stall the inevitable war. But Ryan wasn't just here to talk. He was here to prove that Earth had more to offer than just weapons and soldiers. Humanity had something that the Zellarians needed: hope for a future that didn't involve endless conflict. Princess Lyra was waiting for him in the meeting room when Ryan arrived. She looked more serious than usual, her regal posture firm as she greeted him. "Commander Adams," Lyra said, her voice as calm as ever, "we need to talk. There are forces within my court who are not pleased with how these negotiations are progressing." Ryan nodded, sensing the tension in her tone. "I expected as much, Princess. I've been getting the sense that not everyone here is on board with peace." Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she motioned for him to follow her down a long corridor. The palace, with its towering stone walls and glowing energy sources, seemed to hum with energy, an energy that matched the intensity of the situation. "The truth is, Commander," Lyra continued, her voice low, "many of my people are tired. They are tired of the endless negotiations, the constant delays, and the broken promises. They believe that peace with humans is a fantasy. They believe that we have already been too weak for too long." Ryan could hear the weight in her words. Lyra wasn't just a princess. She was the symbol of her people's future. If she couldn't lead them to peace, who could? "Do they not see that both of our worlds will fall if we don't change course?" Ryan asked, his frustration rising. "They see it," Lyra said, "but they also see strength in war. They believe that conquering others will ensure Zellaria's survival, and they believe that only by dominating humanity will we secure our place in the galaxy." Ryan stopped in his tracks. "That's not the answer," he said firmly. "You know that. We've both been at war for too long. It has cost both our peoples too much." Lyra turned to him, her eyes intense. "I know, Commander, but you don't understand what it means to rule a people who are desperate. They are scared. And fear can make even the wisest of rulers do terrible things." Ryan wanted to argue, but before he could speak, a voice interrupted them. It was the voice of Prince Vorak, Lyra's cousin and a well-known opponent of the peace talks. "Princess," Vorak said, his tone sharp, "you've spent enough time with this human. We must be preparing for war, not bargaining like cowards." Ryan turned to face the prince, his jaw tightening. He had expected this. Vorak had always been a hardliner, someone who believed in Zellaria's superiority and saw any peace deal with Earth as a betrayal. The prince was tall, his features sharp and angular, and his eyes were filled with disdain as they met Ryan's. "I would advise you to watch your tone." "Prince," Ryan said, trying to keep his own emotions in check. "I'm here for peace, not for war. If you continue to make threats, you will be the one responsible for prolonging the bloodshed." Lyra stepped between them, her voice calm but firm. "Enough, both of you. I will not have my court divided in front of an outsider. This matter will be resolved privately and no further threats will be made." Ryan could see the strain in Lyra's posture. She was doing everything she could to keep the peace not just with the humans but within her own royal family. "Vorak," Lyra said, her voice icy, "you will respect the negotiations. I will not allow you to sabotage everything we've worked for." The prince's eyes flared with anger, but he said nothing more. He gave a curt bow and turned to leave, muttering under his breath. Ryan could feel the tension between the two, and it was clear that Vorak's opposition was more than just about politics. There was something personal there, a rivalry that went back years. "Princess," Ryan said quietly, "you've got a serious problem on your hands." Lyra didn't answer right away. She was staring at the door where Vorak had just exited, her face a mixture of frustration and concern. Finally, she turned back to Ryan. "I know, but I must try to keep the peace, not just for my people but for yours as well." Ryan's heart softened. He had always known that Lyra was trying to do what was best for her people, even if it meant putting herself in a difficult position. But she couldn't do it alone. She needed support, not just from her court but from Ryan and Earth as well. "How can I help?" Ryan asked, genuinely wanting to make a difference. Lyra looked at him, her eyes searching. "We must go to the heart of the Zalarian Empire. There is a group of radicals who believe that peace with Earth is an insult to our people. If we can convince them, we can end this conflict for good." Ryan frowned. "The radicals? You mean the people who want to keep fighting? Are you sure it's safe to confront them?" Lyra's eyes flashed with determination. "If we don't, we will never be able to bring peace to Zalaria. They are the ones pulling the strings behind the scenes. If we can win them over, the rest of my people will follow." Ryan took a deep breath. This was the last thing he had expected when he signed up for this mission. But if Lyra was willing to risk everything for peace, he had no choice but to stand by her side. "I'll help you," Ryan said. "Where do we begin?" Lyra looked at him with a faint smile. "Follow me. The road ahead will not be easy, but together, we can do it." Hours later, Ryan found himself inside a secret chamber deep within the palace, hidden from the eyes of most of the Zalarian court. Lyra had led him here to meet with the radical faction. It was a dimly lit room, the walls covered in intricate carvings that told stories of ancient Zalarian victories. The air was thick with the tension of the unknown. A group of Zalarian leaders sat at the center of the room, their eyes cold and calculating as they turned to face Ryan. They were a stern-looking group, their armor dark and intimidating. Their leader, a tall man named General Ryan, stood to greet them. His expression was one of contempt as he sized Ryan up. "You've brought a human to our most sacred council?" General Ryan's voice was harsh, filled with anger. Lyra stepped forward. "We need to talk, Ryan. For the good of Zalaria and for the good of Earth. This conflict must end." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "You've betrayed your people, Princess. You've become weak, and now you invite this human to speak for your world. How dare you?" Lyra stood tall, her voice unwavering. "I am the Princess of Zalaria, and I will not stand by and watch my people destroy themselves. I've come to offer a chance for peace. We must stop fighting before we lose everything." Ryan watched the exchange closely. Lyra's courage was remarkable, but he knew she was walking a fine line. One wrong word and the radicals might lash out. He could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. "I'm here to help," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. "But I can't do it alone. We need to find a way to put our weapons down and build a future together, a future where both our worlds can thrive." General Ryan scoffed. "And why should we trust you, human?" Lyra stepped forward. "Because I trust him. I believe that peace is possible, even if it's hard to believe. This is not just for me or for Ryan, it's for Zalaria. It's for all of us." The room fell silent. Ryan's heart raced as he waited for Ryan's response. Lyra's words hung in the air, a fragile thread of hope in the midst of so much anger and fear. Would the radicals listen, or would they reject her? The air in the secret chamber was thick with tension. Ryan Adams stood beside Princess Lyra, his heart pounding in his chest. The group of radicals who sat before them were some of the most influential figures in Zalaria. and their opinion would decide the fate of the peace talks. Lyra had done her best to prepare for this moment, but there was no telling how it would unfold. General Ryan, the leader of the radical faction, still glared at them, his expression hard and unyielding. Behind him, the other members of the council exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of how to react to Lyra's words. "I don't understand why you brought him here." "Princess," Ryan said, his voice low but filled with contempt. "We have been fighting Earth for years, and now you expect us to trust this human? What can he offer us that we don't already have?" Ryan could feel the weight of the room pressing down on him. This was no longer just about diplomacy. This was about the survival of both Solaria and Earth. If they couldn't convince these radicals to accept peace, the war would drag on, destroying everything in its path. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with determination. "General Ryan, I know you and many of my people have suffered. I know you believe war is the only way forward. But look around you. Our planet is dying. Every battle, every skirmish only brings us closer to the brink of extinction. We cannot afford to keep fighting," Ryan scoffed. "And what do you expect from them?" He gestured to Ryan. "Do you believe that one human can change centuries of war?" Ryan took a deep breath, stepping up beside Lyra. "I understand that it's hard to believe," he said. "But look at the history of both our species. We've been fighting for far too long, and we've seen what it has done to both our worlds. I didn't come here with promises of easy answers. I came here with a plan to build something better. We're both more than just soldiers. We're civilizations, and we deserve the chance to grow, to learn, and to prosper. Together." The radicals remained silent, their eyes locked on the two of them. Ryan could see that some were skeptical, others uncertain, but none of them seemed willing to speak out just yet. Lyra, sensing the shift in the room, continued. "I've spent my life learning about our people's history," Lyra said, her voice calm but filled with passion. "I know we have been taught that strength comes from domination, that peace is a weakness, but that way has only led us to destruction. I believe that strength lies in unity, and I believe that we can find that strength through cooperation, not conquest." A tense silence followed her words. The room was heavy with the weight of her declaration. General Ryan stood motionless, his face unreadable. Ryan could feel the pressure building, the uncertainty of the moment weighing on him. This was it, the moment of truth. Finally, Ryan spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "You ask for peace, Princess, but peace requires trust. And how can we trust a human? Especially one who represents a species that has been at war with us for so long." Ryan met his gaze steadily. "I understand that trust isn't something that can be given easily. It must be earned. But we're here to prove that we are willing to change. Earth isn't what it was 100 years ago. We have learned, we have grown, and we're ready to make things right. Not just for us, but for you too." Lyra placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder, her eyes filled with a quiet strength. "We are not asking for forgiveness, Ryan. We are asking for a chance. A chance to build a future where our people can coexist, where we can share knowledge, trade, and grow together. We have the opportunity to reshape our futures, both Earth and Zelaria, but only if we choose peace." Ryan's eyes flicked between Lyra and Ryan, his face a mask of contemplation. For a long moment, no one moved, the weight of the decision hanging in the air like a cloud. Finally, the general spoke again, his voice softer but still firm. "You speak of peace, Princess," he said slowly, "and perhaps, just perhaps, you are right. But peace is fragile. If we agree to this, we must be prepared to face those who will not agree with us. There are forces within my faction who will never accept this treaty." Lyra nodded. "I understand that, General. There will always be those who resist change, but we can't let fear or hatred guide us any longer. We must do this, for the future of our people." Ryan stood still for another long moment, his gaze never leaving Lyra's. Finally, he exhaled, his shoulders sagging slightly. "You've convinced me, Princess. I don't agree with everything you've said, but I can see that you believe in this. And I can see that you are not alone in this fight." He turned to face the rest of the council, his voice rising. "I will stand with you. I will support this peace, but I warn you, there will be those who will try to stop us, and we must be ready for them." The room fell silent once again, the other radicals still uncertain but now much more willing to listen. One by one they stood up, each giving their own quiet acknowledgement of the decision that had been made. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. The tides were shifting. Ryan felt a wave of relief wash over him. It wasn't over yet. There would still be many challenges ahead. But this was the breakthrough they had needed. He turned to Lyra, who was now standing beside him, her face soft with a quiet smile. For the first time since arriving on Zelaria, Ryan felt like they had a real chance at peace. "Thank you, General," Ryan said, his voice full of gratitude. "This is a step in the right direction." Rion nodded. "The first step is always the hardest. But I hope you're right, human. I hope this is the beginning of something better." As the council members began to disperse, Lyra turned to Ryan, her eyes reflecting a mix of exhaustion and hope. "We've done it," she said quietly. "But it's not over. Now we must take this decision back to our people. We need their support," Ryan smiled. "One step at a time, Princess." One step at a time. Over the next few weeks, the news of the agreement spread through Zelaria like wildfire. It wasn't an easy journey, and there were still many who resisted. But as Ryan and Lyra traveled across the planet speaking to the people, the tide slowly began to turn. The hope for peace grew, and the first seeds of cooperation were planted. The final signing of the peace treaty took place in a grand hall, with representatives from both Earth and Zelaria standing side by side. The room was filled with a sense of history in the making. Ryan stood next to Lyra, his hand resting gently on her shoulder as they looked out at the crowd. The weight of the moment was not lost on either of them. "This is just the beginning," Lyra said softly, her voice filled with quiet determination. Ryan nodded. "But it's a beginning we can build on." As the treaty was signed, the future of both Earth and Zelaria seemed a little brighter. It wasn't perfect. There would be challenges, disagreements, and hard days ahead. But for the first time in a long time, there was hope. Hope that the two civilizations could finally find a way to coexist, to build something greater than war. And in that moment, standing beside the woman who had become not only a powerful ally but a true friend, Ryan knew that they had just taken the first step toward a new dawn. A dawn of peace for both their worlds.